That's right, ladies and gentlemen. That is right. We are back. JV Wans, Dogon SS, here for another edition of the Conscious Approach channel on YouTube. Much appreciation to everybody out there who is tuning in and following along with us, liking and subscribing so that you can get that notification whenever new content is published to the channel. We certainly appreciate everybody joining us for this ride as we can continue to build out this community, kick this logical content. And if you have not already done so, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and leave a comment. Let us know what you think about the commentary in any of our videos. So long as they are constructive, we'll always pay attention and maybe even provide some feedback. Now, if you're trolling, we'll probably just ignore it. But if it's constructive, whether you like or hated what we had to say, we'll definitely address it because we are paying attention. Trust me. So, also want to say, check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. We are now available on those platforms in audio version for anybody who might not be in the position to check us out on YouTube. If you're at work, if you're driving in the car, if you're at the gym and you like to listen to podcasts, check us out in those spaces as well. Just trying to be available in all places possible as we continue to rock and roll. So we are much obliged, and we thank everybody out there who supports the channel. Thank you very much as we continue to keep this thing moving. Now, with that out of the way, we'll go ahead and get started with tonight's stream. First thing that we are going to get into is interesting comments made by Hollywood actor Anthony Mackie. Anthony Mackie goes back a very long way. He was in 8 Mile. The guy's been in a whole bunch of movies. He probably is most known from a mainstream standpoint as the new Captain America in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. At least they didn't really pander in this sense because there is precedent for the Black Captain America in the comics. So it's not like they made this up for pandering purposes. But Anthony Mackie is the new Captain America in the MCU. And I guess he's been doing press, appearing on shows and podcasts with the release of the new Captain America movie. And he was recently on the Pivot podcast. And during his appearance on the Pivot, they talked about a myriad of subject matter. They got into a lot of things. One of the things that I thought was pretty interesting that they got into was Anthony Mackie's belief that children have been lied to when it comes to the pursuit of success. In a nutshell, Anthony Mackie believes that success is not guaranteed based on hard work, but rather those who are successful are chosen. And some might find comments like these to be somewhat controversial. At the very least, they are debatable because, the age-old adage of work hard and you'll succeed has been drilled into several generations of humans at this point. And I think that there is a counter argument being made in that regard that is not the case. And Anthony Mackie is lending voice to that counter argument. And this coming from a person who is successful in his own right, actually saying that those who are success is chosen, not given based on hard work. So we'll go ahead and let Mr. Mackie speak for himself. And then we will obviously talk about what he had to say on the back end.
Kids, if they do right and they make the good grades and they go to the programs and they will become successful. If you work hard enough, your work will be paid off. And that's not true. Success is given. It's not earned. Because you can be the most brilliant motherfucker. If one person don't tap you, each one of y'all, there were people who could hit harder, who could catch better, who could run faster. But somebody said, you're the one. And the other 50 behind you fell off. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And because of that, I don't know what that emotion or that feeling is the scary thing. Because I went to all the programs. I've done Broadway. I've done off-Broadway. I've been in the business 24 years. I've been in 2 Academy Award films. I've done independent films. I've done major motion pictures. Now I'm Captain America. So now what?
So that was Anthony Mackie speaking on that. I'm pretty sure believers in the American dream probably have something to say about his comments there. But what do you think? Do you think he had a point? Do you think he was correct? It is given and not earned through hard work.
Yeah, man, I tend to agree with that. I don't want to make absolutes here, but I would say generally speaking, the stereotypical uh, form of success, the commercialized form of success, yeah, I would say that most of that is not merit based. It's based upon who you know and or who you brown nose to. And so it also happens in athletics. In that little clip there, those guys was like, right, at the beginning. But then he was like, man, even in sports, man, somebody picked y'all. And which is true. There's a lot of talented guys out there, and some guys that are more talented than the next, they don't get the same tap on the shoulder. I know for sure in basketball, it's all kinds of politics involved. Hell, just last night, man. I know the game went into overtime, but he was balling before that. But Quentin Grimes dropped a 40 something piece on Houston, who's good. And Quentin Grimes, this is like his third or fourth team in NBA. Looking like he's going to get himself out of the league because he's not good enough. But he's been balling since, Tyrese Maxey and others are out. And they just gave him the keys, and he's putting up keys numbers. But given the beginning of the season, nobody would have said that. And there's a lot of that stuff going on in athletics, as I mentioned. It goes on in the office space in corporate America, where the best worker, I know at my last job, the girl that was crushing it the hardest, they wanted to keep her there at that level because she crushes it so hard. And they was giving other people promotions. But I was like, no, you're so good at doing this. He's like, well, okay, well, if she's good at doing this, wouldn't she be better at other things? But I was like, no. We want these numbers to stay like this. So she stays here. And then other people can get up into management and other things. So, yeah, man, I've seen it all over the place. So you kind of have to know how to play the game. So there's a game behind the game in every game you play in life. And so whether you're in corporate America, Hollywood, the music industry, or sports athletics, you're going to have to know how to play the chess game behind the scenes when it comes to what they call networking and other things. Last thing I'll say before I let you go, and this is why in the college realm, there's such an emphasis on sororities and fraternities, because and you and I can attest to it. The guys that was in those fraternities, those weren't the best and the brightest. Those were the guys that was willing to go along to get along. But once they get out of school, they are positioned in a position based upon who they know to be in positions that and otherwise they wouldn't qualify for. So yeah, America is not a true meritocracy. It hasn't been, I would say ever, but that's the dream and that's the facade they've been selling everybody. So yeah, man, I agree with bro. It'd be interesting, to see what the now what means, because you're Captain. Yeah, you're Captain America. You just said that, and you're Captain America. And I'm pretty sure there's some other African American male that was auditioning for these roles. Somebody that didn't have the name or Broadway type of things that were just as good as, or maybe even better than you if you played the role. So why you? It's an interesting conversation. But what are your thoughts on Mr. Mackie saying that, they've lied to the kids, basically saying just work hard and you'll make it to the top? What are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, it's a lie. It is a lie. It's always been a lie. I can personalize it. I grew up in a household with school being drilled into my skull. The idea. So, and a lot of this is generational too. It's based it's rooted in the environment that you come up in, which is And the environment that you come up in is created by individuals who came up in environments similar to that one. So a lot of it is generational, passed down through time. And to a certain extent, you can't really do anything about it until you get older and gain a greater sense of self awareness about the world and how it works. But I came up in a household where it was drilled into my skull that school was the end all to be all. Um, it was all about going to school and getting the grades because that would position me best to be successful. So, because I knew no better, I followed those tenets and I carried it with me all throughout grade school and even into college. And, it was interesting because in elementary school, middle school, and high school, I essentially mastered the skill of getting good grades. Now, was I learning anything? No, not necessarily. I had mastered the skill of getting the grades, which is independent of whether you're actually learning and understanding and grasping concepts.
Yeah, that's
Those
true.
are those are two those are two different things. I learned that I had a skill for getting good grades. That was my talent when it came to education. I learned how to game the system in order to be able to get the good grades. But did that amount to anything substantive? Not necessarily. And at a certain point, I thought to myself, man, eventually this is going to end. I'm not going to be able to keep doing this in college. In college, I really got to know my stuff. Like, I really got to be able to grasp these concepts. And I really have to be able to understand these things. I can't just willy nilly go into higher education and still maintain the skill of getting good grades, right? No, no, you can pretty much do the same thing in college. I got to college and I carried those skills of good grades with me all throughout higher education. And I was able to graduate college looking good on paper, but not maintaining any of the requisite qualities that would position me best to be successful. I went. This this was so much so my reality that I had to go back to school to try and reverse engineer the process. So I went back to school and got a graduate degree as an attempt to correct those missteps in terms of my approach to education. And I got into grad school and I realized to a certain extent you can still do the same thing. Now, there are aspects of grad school in which you will have to apply yourself and, and present an understanding of certain things. But there's also a lot of filler, even at the master's level, where if you exhibit the skill of book learning, you can pretty much sail through with the good grades. Meanwhile, you didn't learn anything. So I came out the back end with all this paperwork, all these degrees, all of this on paper credentials, yet I was struggling to find my footing professionally. And the only reason why I bring this up is because I concur with what Anthony Mackie is saying. Because if what Anthony Mackie is saying is incorrect and success is indeed based on merit and hard work, you should, in theory, be able to, make the grades in school, come out of it on the back end, and be positioned for success. And I can personally attest to the reality that that is not the case. So I don't want to completely dismiss education, and that's not what my talking points are about. My talking points aren't necessarily about dismissing education or hard work. Rather, they are about correctly qualifying the requisite skills needed to be successful. And that is where I think the lie is sold to younger generations, myself included, and future generations after that. It's about correctly qualifying the requisite skills needed. I think our generation is probably the last generation that believed in the lie of school and the grades is all it takes. And so long as you leave your mark adequately in those areas, you'll be able to be successful. I think our generation is the last generation that believed the lie. I think the lie is still being sold, but I think people are more hip to the game and are understanding that there is a balance of other things that are needed in addition to succeeding on the educational front. But I think our generation was the last generation that believed the lie. I know I believe the lie. I believe the lie. And I didn't come to understand that there's more to it than that until I was damn near 30 years old.
Mm.
So where Mackie's comments are correct in my estimation is in the need for us to more effectively qualify success and the skills needed therein in order to attain it. It's one thing to drill it into your kids that they need to go to school and get good grades. It's another thing to also impress upon your kids the importance of developing and maintaining good to great social skills, because those social skills are what's going to propel you to success in conjunction with whatever you may have learned throughout your schooling. And you need both. You can't succeed with one and not the other. But if I had to bet on needing one more than the other, I would say you need adequate social skills more than you need all of that fancy book learning. So it's all about qualifying what is best and what's needed more than anything else. And I think that that is the lie that's been sold to kids, is past generations, not through no fault of their own because they didn't know any better. But I feel like past generations sold children on the idea that it's the hard work and the hard work alone that's needed in order to be successful, without also qualifying the other requisite skills that you need, such as a modicum of good to great social skills, because those are skills that also need to be developed, just like your math skills and your science skills and everything else. Those things need to be developed if you are going to be positioned for success. And when you get out there into the cold, cruel world and you don't have those requisite social skills, you're going to find yourself beating your head against the wall because you think that your resume on paper is all that you need, yet you're getting rejection letter after rejection letter, no email after no email of people saying thanks, but we're going to go with this person, thanks, but we're going to go with this opportunity instead. And those other intrinsic qualities are just as important as the more tangible, easily visible skills of the books and the education and the hard work and the learning. So I think it was a lie. I think historically it's always been a lie. And I'm tracking with what Mackie's saying there. This coming from an individual who himself was able to become successful. So interesting to hear him put it that way, but I don't disagree.
Yeah, and I would say that, of course, qualifying this conversation, success is a relative term. And, I believe the level of success that he was talking about, as I mentioned in my first statement, is, the more commercialized form of success, the one that is being sold to Americans, the multiple car garage, a house with more bedrooms than you can sleep in, 1.2 dogs, 2.3 kids, that stuff, picket fence, housing authorities, or more. And, vacations when you want that type of lifestyle, that's generally what is considered successful, according to America. And even that in itself is a lie, if you ask me. Just because you have all those things doesn't make you successful, according to my definition. But according to the definition that was given to all Americans, in order to get into those positions, yeah, it's not always done off of merit. It's not always done off of what you know. It's as I mentioned, it's about who you know. Now, a lot of people that come into this country, that go to and take classes that Americans don't want to take, when it comes to engineering, medical schools, and stuff like that, they can, through education, learn things and position themselves without any adequate social skills. In a position where they're making pretty nice money, drive nice cars, and have all of those things that I mentioned earlier. Now, when it comes to climbing that ladder within their thing, now if they're trying to be, the top person here or top person there, then the new game begins of you do have to have those social skills. You do have to, so it's just a matter of what an individual deems success, or how high they're trying to go. And again, if this is his point, this Mackie guy, if this is his point, again, how did you become successful? What games did you play? Who do you know? And did they just tap you? It sounds like they did.
I think he's insinuating that he was chosen.
Yeah, he was tapped. And who tapped them? Why did they do that? Do those people have an agenda? You know, it's all kinds of stuff, man, that that goes along with this. But for me, I'll say, yeah, even though I was sold the American dream, I had the trap star dream, bro. I, I did I wanted the hood fame. I didn't want to sell any narcotics, but I wanted the lifestyle that came with it. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted all of that stuff. That was what I felt that's what I was aspiring for. That notoriety, driving that kind of car, having those kind of thoughters. Yeah, that was my thing. That's what I was dreaming towards. That was my American dream. But even that in itself, that is a lie as well. So, of course, as I got older, I realized that was a lie, on top of the American dream being a lie. And then so everybody has to define their own version of success, I would say, at the end of the day, because that generalized commercial form of success is a manufactured definition by the industrial complex. And as a product of the Industrial Revolution, they always needed hard workers. So, of course, they're going to preach work hard. Of course, they're going to tell you if you work hard, you're going to do that. It's a inception. It was the seed that got planted that starts growing on its own, and you got sold it at a young age. But if you look at enough white collar crime videos on YouTube, you look at certain Fortune 500 people, how they made it to the top. They made it scamming. They made it to the top scamming, cutting corners. Not working harder, but working air quote smarter. So that's why you can see that the people that are cutthroat stuff too. That's why you hear the stories about the this person or that person doesn't even have a college degree, because they just went into the game finessing. So all these people that's trying to do things the right way, air quote, by the book, those people don't make money in America. It's the scammers, it's the finessers, it's the, all of that stuff, man. So the whole American facade is a facade, if you ask me. And so that's why I say you're better off determining what your own brand of success is. And at least for me personally, because I got a few definitions, but the one I could just throw off the top of my head is knowing who you are, being proud of who you are, and yeah, man, being true to yourself. And if you're doing all those things, no matter what your W-2 looks like, all right, you're successful. Because there's people out here that are willing to sell themselves out, and they have all the gold in the world, but no soul at all. So, yeah, it just depends on what your definition of success is. But I hear what he's saying, and I do agree. So, yeah, everybody, do your thing out there. But I think at this point, because especially those Gen Zers, last thing I'll say, those Gen Zers, they don't give a damn. Okay, so I don't know what those generations afterwards, but they, the customer service, we talked about it before, man. They don't give a damn about giving me good customer service. They're just there to collect the check because they know it ain't nothing about this job. They know it's slavery. So why ask them to have enthusiasm about getting whipped in the back? So yeah, man, the younger generation already can see the writing on the wall. I think you're right that we were like the last ones that were actually sold that and low key believed it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, be safe out there, y'all, and define your own success. I would say that.
Yeah, I think when he speaks on success, I think he's specifically talking about career and life success, particularly financial. So, like, if there's the watered down definition of success that's easily digestible by the majority of the population, is going to be I make a lot of money and I'm happy with what I do. I think those are the two aspects of it. I'm happy with what I'm doing, and I make a lot of money doing what I'm happy doing. I think if you are able to check off those two boxes, most people tend to define that as success. And I largely agree with you. I think success is relative. I think if you define success in accordance with your own personal life's mission, you can find peace with that. The problem nowadays is the majority of humans don't have a life's mission. So when so when you don't have a life's mission, and you essentially are groomed from the time that you're born to be a lifelong consumer, you don't actually develop the time and the bandwidth to develop a life mission. And when you don't have the time, or when you don't have the time or the bandwidth to develop a life mission, and you're just consuming for your entire life, it just becomes all about living in excess. So the more money I have, the more freedom I have without having to work hard, the more successful I am. It becomes a very watered down, neutered definition of the word success. So from that standpoint, being able to attain that has less to do with how hard you're actually working physically or through using your brain with books in school, and more to do with ways that you can figure out how to navigate throughout society using your gift of gab and your various ways to infiltrate certain rooms and opportunities and avenues. That's what it becomes about. So from that standpoint, I don't disagree with what he is saying, because he is speaking on it from a traditional standpoint of either physical or cerebral hard work almost assured you, based upon the old code, that you can make it and make something of yourself. Clearly that is antiquated, and it's so antiquated that it probably never existed to begin with, honestly, because for as long as I've been looking at history, especially the history of this country, the people who have been making it, especially those at the top, have been doing it off of the backs of other people's hard work. So I hear everything that he's saying, and I concur. And take it from a guy who was groomed to be a worker. I am at the moment trying to break this generational curse, and it is easier said than done. Trust me, because it takes you know uh, people in this particular circumstance don't have the luxury of being groomed in an incubator in which they can naturally learn some of the intrinsic skills needed to truly succeed in whatever way you can define success. So when you're not groomed in that incubator, you kind of got to get it off the muscle and learn by happenstance. And as an individual who is trying to learn by happenstance, I can attest to the lie that is work hard and you'll get it for sure. I've been through several situations throughout my career in which I've had to pivot and reorient myself in a different direction. And every single time that I found myself having to do that, it was not my paper, it was not my on paper credentials or my curriculum vitae that got me into my new avenue. It was me picking up the phone and calling somebody and saying, yeah, you know what's going on this front? Oh, yeah, let me make a couple calls and I'll get back to you. 30 days later, I got a new opportunity. So those are the kind of intrinsic skills that are not being taught to, I believe, large numbers of younger generations. Even though it's happening at a greater rate now, it's still not happening at a rate that's higher enough. Because if you do any research on the economic wealth gap, we see what the numbers are. And the haves continue to be less and the have-nots continue to be more, because people and the mode by which they are becoming successful, quote unquote, is not rising commensurate with the cost of living. And there's a reason for that, because to a certain extent, we're still on that old system and not enough people are on the new system. So, the matrix is still fully in effect. And until we destroy it and free everybody to live, peacefully in Zion, we'll still be looking at this situation. It ain't gonna go nowhere.
Yeah, I hear that, man. And last thing I'll say is that there's more lies. So this isn't the only one. And as I mentioned, that this is, you can pretty much trace this lie back to the Industrial Revolution, and just the fact that they need slaves,
Yes.
and the fact that they need willing slaves.
Yes.
And because if they force you and whip you into labor, they saw how that goes, and that's a problem. But if they create an inception and create this fake meritocracy, they will willingly work, and they'll bust their ass to try to reach the top of this ladder, and they'll never get there because there's this glass ceiling that they don't even know exists. And so there's more lies on top of that. This is just one avenue, one talking point of the lies that were sold to Americans in order to have the country in a state that it's in now.
Yes, it needs a workforce.
And I'll tell you like this: every week we cover the pathologies of and we got something this week, the pathologies of Americans. Who gave them this? Why are they thinking like this with the educational system and all of these other things that's supposed to be helping people through life? Why is everybody in such a mentally ill state? Why is mental health one of the highest talking points going on right now with the young people growing up? It's because they've been sold a false reality. So it doesn't just end with working hard. There's other things that were sold to them, and we cover them here. Whatever. We'll talk about the influences of social media and other things. But yeah, it doesn't just end here, man. So I hear his point, and I would just ask other people, man, to just expand your mind, man. I know there's a lot of things out there that's been given to us, and the status quo by the book ways. It makes sense on one hand, but don't think everything on the flip side of that's tinfoil. There's legitimate questions to be asked of these stereotypical things that's been given to us over these years, and it's okay to ask. It's okay to ask questions, and it's a religion of thought that people are carrying now. Because if you challenge anything that the status quo says, automatically you're a conspiracy theorist, you're an X, you're a Y, and you're a Z. But it's okay to ask questions, especially if something isn't adding up. So in this context here, I agree with him, and I say just don't stop here, guys. I think there's many more stones to be overturned with discussions like this. And save yourselves by working smarter and work harder for yourself than you do for your employer. Because I know you still got to keep them lights on, but make sure you work harder for yourself.
Yeah, there's just way too many roadblocks that get in the way of people being able to define success for themselves. It's just there's all kind of stuff, man. Marriage, family, dating success, children, 401k portfolios, holdings, running businesses. There's just so many different outside stimuli that influence one's perception of success that it's just impossible for most people nowadays, unfortunately, to develop a reasonable example of what success means based upon their own personal code. It's almost like people are hustling backwards. Like your personal ethics should define what success means for you. But what I think happens nowadays is people's perception of success is defining their personal ethics. So it's like they're working backwards. And when you have obviously the outside world, and as you put it, social media, like, okay, so as a man, social media, movies, music, and entertainment, women, things women say and do, consuming a lot of this content on a daily basis. These are the kinds of things that can creep into a man's psyche and inform him on what success means. And when that happens, he then develops a complex about what his personal ethics are based upon that. So it's just hard, man. It's easier said than done. But I think one thing that we can, well, at least you and I can definitely agree on, is that all of that outside stimuli, consistent with what Mackie is talking about, are lies that have been incepted to most people, I think. And it is what it is, but statistically, only but so many are going to go. So those who can realize that it isn't true and you can define that for yourself safely, and it's okay to be content with that, they'll be the ones on the other side of that chasm. And the majority of the people who can't figure it out, they'll be on that other side of it, the less abundant side. So it is what it is.
Yeah, man. So hey, so let us know down in the comment section, y'all. What are y'all thoughts on this? Y'all agree with Sir Mackie here? Do you believe that these kids are being lied to, telling them that working harder will make you more successful? You know, what are your thoughts on this one? Love to hear it. And make sure you guys like the video as well and subscribe if you haven't already. I'm looking at those metrics, and not all of you guys are subscribing. So make sure you guys hit the subscribe, man. We'll greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, shouts out to Mackie, man, aka Papa Doc.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, Papa Doc from 8 Mile, man. Mackie been around a long time, man. He been around a long time.
Yeah, Eminem served the hell out of that. I mean,
Yeah, he did. Yeah.